The city lights blurred into golden ribbons as Julian Reeves pressed the accelerator of his midnight blue sports car. His hands gripped the leather steering wheel with the same confidence he used to command boardrooms and design conferences. At 38, he had built an architectural empire that reshaped skylines across 3 continents. Tonight's celebration dinner with investors had run late, but Julian never let anyone else's schedule dictate his own. The winding coastal highway was his preferred route home. Fewer traffic lights, fewer rules, fewer people to slow him down. His phone buzzed in the center console, probably Owen, his business partner, with another congratulatory message about the Dubai contract they'd just secured. Julian ignored it. He'd respond when he felt like it, on his terms, as he did with everything in his meticulously controlled life. The price of arrogance. The curve appeared faster than he anticipated. Julian had driven this road 100 times, always pushing the limits, always emerging unscathed. But tonight, a patch of oil from an earlier accident created a slick surface that his expensive tires couldn't grip. The car spun violently, a sickening ballet of chrome and carbon fiber. Julian felt his stomach lurch as the vehicle left the road, crashed through the guardrail, and tumbled down a rocky embankment. Time stretched and compressed simultaneously. He registered the airbag deploying, the explosive sound of shattering glass, the metallic taste of blood in his mouth. Then everything went dark. An unexpected guardian. Dr. Nora Mitchell had been driving home from her shift at Mercy General Hospital when she witnessed the accident unfold. Without hesitation, she pulled her modest sedan to the shoulder, grabbed her emergency medical kit from the trunk, and scrambled down the embankment. Her petite frame belied her strength as she navigated the rocky terrain in the darkness. The sports car lay crumpled on its side, steam hissing from the engine. Nora approached carefully, assessing the scene for fire risk before peering through the shattered window. A man hung suspended by his seatbelt, unconscious, blood trickling from a gash above his eyebrow. "Sir, can you hear me?" she called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm a doctor. I'm going to help you." She checked his pulse, weak but present. His breathing was shallow. Moving with practiced efficiency, Nora stabilized his neck as best she could, applied pressure to the bleeding wound, and dialed emergency services. While waiting for the ambulance, she talked to him continuously, monitoring his vital signs and ensuring his airway remained clear. The first glimpse of humanity. Julian's eyes fluttered open to find a woman's face inches from his own. Her brown eyes were focused and calm, her hands steady as they pressed something against his forehead. Pain radiated through his skull, but her voice cut through the fog like a lighthouse beam. "Stay with me," she said firmly. "You've been in an accident. Help is coming. Don't try to move." He wanted to protest, to take control of the situation, but his body refused to cooperate. For the first time in decades, Julian Reeves was completely helpless, entirely dependent on someone else's competence. It was a terrifying and strangely humbling experience. The rescue. The ambulance arrived within minutes, followed by a fire truck. Nora stepped back to let the paramedics work but stayed close, providing them with a detailed account of Julian's condition and the care she'd administered. As they carefully extracted him from the wreckage and loaded him onto a stretcher, Julian's hand reached out weakly. "Thank you," he managed to whisper, his voice barely audible. Nora squeezed his hand briefly. "You're going to be okay. They'll take good care of you at the hospital." As the ambulance doors closed, Julian caught one last glimpse of his rescuer standing in the flashing red lights, her clothes stained with his blood, her expression relieved. Then the morphine kicked in, and darkness claimed him again. The morning after. Julian woke 18 hours later in a private hospital room that his assistant Patricia had arranged. His head throbbed despite the pain medication, and his ribs ached from the seatbelt impact. Owen sat in a chair by the window, looking exhausted. "You scared the hell out of us," Owen said, relief evident in his voice. "The doctors say you're lucky. Concussion, 3 cracked ribs, and some nasty bruises, but nothing that won't heal." "The woman," Julian croaked. "The doctor who helped me before the ambulance arrived. What happened to her?" Owen consulted his phone. Patricia tracked her down. "Dr. Nora Mitchell, emergency physician at Mercy General. She gave her statement to the police and went home." "Why?" Julian closed his eyes, processing this information. He owed this woman his life. In his world, debts were settled swiftly and generously. "Get me her contact information." "Mercy General. She gave her statement to the police and went home." "Why?" Julian closed his eyes, processing this information. He owed this woman his life. In his world, debts were settled swiftly and generously. "Get me her contact information. I need to thank her properly." Owen hesitated. "Julian, she's not one of your business contacts. Maybe just send flowers?" But Julian Reeves didn't do anything halfway. "Find out what she needs, what she wants. I don't care what it costs." What Julian didn't understand yet was that Dr. Nora Mitchell wanted nothing from him, a concept so foreign to his experience that it would shake the very foundation of his carefully constructed world. 3 days after the accident, Nora was finishing her morning rounds at Mercy General when Patricia appeared in the hallway outside the emergency department. The woman was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, carrying a leather portfolio that probably cost more than Nora's monthly rent. "Dr. Mitchell? I'm Patricia Langford, executive assistant to Julian Reeves. Mr. Reeves wanted me to express his profound gratitude for saving his life. He's arranged a small token of appreciation." Patricia handed Nora an envelope. Inside was a check with so many zeros that Nora had to count them twice to believe what she was seeing. "This is $50,000, Nora said quietly, her hands trembling slightly, not from excitement, but from barely contained anger. "Mr. Reeves felt it was appropriate compensation for your time and expertise," Patricia explained with practiced professionalism. The rejection. Nora folded the check once, then again, and handed it back. "Please tell Mr. Reeves that I don't need or want his money. I did what any doctor would do in that situation. What any decent person would do." Patricia looked genuinely confused. "I assure you, this is a sincere gesture of—" "It's insulting," Nora interrupted, her voice low but fierce. "Does he think everything can be solved with money? Does he believe people only act out of self-interest, waiting for payment? I helped him because he was injured and needed help. That's what we do in medicine. We don't send invoices for basic human decency." She walked away, leaving Patricia standing in the hallway with the uncashed check. Later that afternoon, Patricia called to offer an alternative, perhaps a donation to the hospital in Nora's name. Nora declined. "A week's vacation at Mr. Reeves' private resort?" Again, no thank you. Each rejection was polite but firm, leaving Patricia to report back to an increasingly frustrated Julian. The direct approach. 2 weeks after the accident, Julian was cleared to return to work with restrictions. Against his doctor's advice to take it easy, he dove back into his projects with characteristic intensity. But one task remained unfinished, gnawing at him like an architectural flaw he couldn't fix: he hadn't properly thanked Nora Mitchell. He decided to handle it personally. Nora was grabbing coffee in the hospital cafeteria during her lunch break when Julian approached her table. She recognized him immediately despite the fading bruises on his face. He wore casual clothes, expensive casual clothes, and moved with a slight stiffness that suggested his ribs were still healing. "Dr. Mitchell, may I join you?" Nora gestured to the empty chair across from her, her expression guarded. "Mr. Reeves. You look much better than the last time I saw you." "Thanks to you," he said, settling into the chair with care. "I wanted to apologize. My assistant told me about the check, and the other offers. I didn't mean to offend you." The conversation. "Then what did you mean?" Nora asked, taking a sip of her mediocre coffee. Julian paused, genuinely considering the question. I meant to express gratitude the way I know how. In business, in my world, everything has value that can be quantified and exchanged. You provided a service, an invaluable service, and I wanted to compensate you appropriately. I'm not a service provider, Nora said. And what I did wasn't a transaction. It was a moral obligation. If you'd been anyone else, a homeless person, a criminal, my worst enemy, I would have done exactly the same thing. Julian leaned back, studying her. She was different from anyone in his usual orbit. No designer clothes, no makeup beyond the basics, no jewelry except a simple watch. Her scrubs were wrinkled from a long shift, and she had dark circles under her eyes. Yet she sat across from him with absolute confidence, unbought and unbothered by his wealth or. Help me understand, he said. What do you want? There must be something. Nora laughed, but it wasn't unkind. You really don't get it, do you? Not everything is about wanting or getting. Some things just are. I didn't save your life to gain something from it. I saved your life because that's who I am. It's what I chose to be when I became a doctor. The challenge. Julian felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest, not attraction, though he found her fascinating, but something deeper. Respect mixed with confusion. Everyone wants something, he insisted. That's a sad way to view the world, Nora replied gently. Maybe in your world of contracts and negotiations, that's true. But there's a bigger world out there, Mr. Reeves. A world where people help each other without expecting payment. Where value isn't measured in dollars. She stood to leave, picking up her tray. I'm glad you're recovering. Take care of yourself. Wait, Julian said, rising too quickly and wincing as his ribs protested. Can I at least buy you a decent cup of coffee? Not as payment, not as compensation. Just, as a thank you. A real one. Nora paused, seeing something in his eyes she hadn't noticed before, genuine humility struggling against years of conditioning. The coffee here is terrible, isn't it? She admitted with a small smile. The worst I've ever tasted, Julian agreed. Fine. One coffee. But I'm paying for my own. Julian started to argue but stopped himself, recognizing the test for what it was. Deal. As they walked toward the exit together, Julian realized he'd just won and lost his first negotiation with Nora Mitchell, and somehow, both outcomes felt exactly right. They ended up at a small cafe 3 blocks from the hospital, a place Nora frequented between shifts. It was the opposite of the sleek, minimalist restaurants Julian usually patronized: mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, a bulletin board cluttered with community announcements. Julian felt oddly out of place yet strangely comfortable. True to her word, Nora paid for her own cappuccino. Julian ordered a black coffee and, at the barista's insistence, tried their famous cinnamon roll. They found a table by the window. So, Nora said, breaking off a piece of her blueberry muffin, tell me about Julian Reeves when he's not trying to write checks to solve problems. The question caught him off guard. People usually wanted to hear about his projects, his success, his vision for urban design. I'm not sure there's much to tell beyond that, he admitted. I don't believe you, Nora said. Nobody builds the things you build without having something to say. I looked you up after the accident. Your buildings are beautiful, but they're also isolated. Like each one is its own island. The vulnerability. Julian was quiet for a moment, processing her observation. It was uncomfortably accurate. My father was a contractor, he said finally. Not an architect, just a guy who worked on other people's designs. He always said that if you want something done right, you do it yourself. You don't trust anyone else, don't depend on anyone else. I suppose that philosophy influenced my work. That sounds lonely, Nora observed. Maybe, Julian conceded. But it's also honest. People let you down. Partnerships fail. The only person you can really count on is yourself. Nora tilted her head, studying him. That accident must have been difficult for someone with that worldview. You were completely dependent on strangers, me, the paramedics, the hospital staff. It was, Julian admitted, surprised at his own honesty. It was terrifying. The emergency. They talked for an hour about everything and nothing, her medical training, his latest project, their different philosophies on work and life. Julian found himself laughing more than he had in months, and Nora discovered that beneath the armor of wealth and control was someone genuinely interesting. Then Nora's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression changed instantly. I have to go. There's been a multi-vehicle accident on the highway. All hands on deck. She stood quickly, already shifting into doctor mode. Julian stood too, pulling out his wallet. Let me at least drive you. My car's faster than a cab. I thought you weren't supposed to be driving yet, Nora challenged. I'm not, Julian admitted. But Owen's been playing chauffeur. He's actually waiting outside. I wasn't sure how long this would take. The ride. In Owen's SUV, they raced toward the hospital. Julian sat in back with Nora, watching as she mentally prepared herself, her hands flexing unconsciously. He recognized the focus, the same intense concentration he felt before a major presentation. Do you ever get used to it? He asked quietly. The emergencies, the trauma? You don't get used to it, Nora said. You get better at handling it. But every patient matters. Every life. Owen pulled up to the emergency entrance. Nora reached for the door handle, then paused. Thank you for the coffee. And the ride. Nora, Julian said, using her first name for the first time. She turned back. Can I see you again? Not for coffee, not to say thank you. Just, to see you. The beginning. In the chaos of the emergency entrance, ambulances arriving, medical staff rushing out, Nora looked at him for a long moment. She saw past the expensive clothes and the powerful reputation to the man who'd been vulnerable in a wrecked car, who'd admitted he was terrified of depending on others, who was trying, however clumsily, to connect with someone who didn't want anything from him. I work 3 12-hour shifts this week, she said. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I'm free on Sunday. Sunday, Julian repeated, committing it to memory. But Julian, she added seriously, I don't date patients. So technically, you're not my patient anymore. And I don't date men who think money solves everything. So if you show up with flowers that cost more than my car or try to take me to some exclusive restaurant, I'll leave. Understood? Julian smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his usually stern face. Understood. Casual. Simple. No grand gestures. Good, Nora said, and for the first time since they'd met, she smiled back, really smiled. Then she was gone, disappearing through the automatic doors into the organized chaos of her world. Owen looked at Julian in the rearview mirror. Did you just get a date by agreeing not to be yourself? Maybe, Julian said, still watching the emergency entrance. Or maybe I'm figuring out who I actually am. As they drove away, Julian realized something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in his adult life, he cared about someone's opinion more than he cared about controlling the outcome. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely unlike anything he'd designed or built. And for the architect who'd spent his life constructing walls around his heart, Nora Mitchell was the earthquake he never saw coming, the force that would either bring everything crashing down or teach him how to build something real.